I guess I better go ahead and talk about this because a lot of people have always talked about Cyberpunk 2077, and I understand the issues and the problems in the game, and I understand and I can sympathize with a lot of console gamers, especially those who bought the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One version, was riddled with bugs and issues. But a journalist decided to write an article from Pace Magazine, which a lot of things that he said were kind of out of whack. Some things I'll agree with, but I'm going to go ahead and get into it and go ahead and show you this article. Now, the title of this article is basically Cyberpunk 2077 is the game of the year, but only in that time of man of the year kind of way, which I'm going to go ahead and address right now from Pace Magazine, because it seems that a journalist named Garrett Martin, who basically talked about Cyberpunk 2077 in a way that it kind of was a little bit really bad in a way. Yes, I better go ahead and use the Texas speech, but keep this in mind, Texas speech isn't perfect, so here we go.
It's been a hell of a month for CD Projekt Red. The Polish game studio behind The Witcher released its latest smash hit Cyberpunk 2077 on December 10th, riding a wave of positive advanced reviews that gave it an initial Metacritic score of 91 out of 100. After 8 years of development, 3 delays, and countless hours of work from an overextended staff that had crunched for months on end, the biggest game of 2020 was finally out, and the designers who made it could rest on their laurels. At least that's what the makers of Cyberpunk 2077 might have assumed on December 8th, the day after those early reviews hit, but before the game itself was released. Because absolutely nothing else has gone CD Projekt Red's way since. The truth is that Cyberpunk 2077 has seen the most disastrous launch for a game of its size since, well, perhaps in the history of the game's business. That Metascore? It's now 86 for the PC version, with the console editions hovering in the 50s, an unthinkably low score for a game of this stature. This game is a complete debacle from almost every angle, and impressively sums up everything that needs to be changed about video games, from how they're made, to how they're marketed, to who they're made for. Cyberpunk 2077 is truly the game of the year because it represents all the problems holding this industry back, and because the size and scope of its failure is so massive. Cyberpunk 2077 is the game of the year in the same way Hitler was Time's Man of the Year in 1938, not as an award or accolade, but as a warning and admonishment to the rest of the world. And no, we are in no way comparing a bad game to history's greatest monster, but if you're looking for an example of when an award isn't really an award, Time kind of set the standard back in 38.
Now, continuing on in this article, there's like 13 things on the list that he made, and this was the title of his thing that he said. Here's how Cyberpunk 2077 single-handedly represents everything wrong with games today. Now I'm going to go ahead and go down this list and talk about them and tell you what I think. Number one, he goes through this saying, CD Projekt Red staff endured an extensive period of extreme crunch to ship a game, sacrificing work-life balance to push a product that was ineffectively unfinished. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go into this and point out that there was another company that did this before, and I'm pretty sure Naughty Dog has been known to do this too, because I seem to recall that Naughty Dog also was in the spotlight for a damning report of basically one good friend of mine was hospitalized due to overwork. And yes, they were overworking people at Naughty Dog. But apparently, game journalists have been praising that game versus CD Projekt Red, which hasn't really had any reports of people, dying from overwork. But it seems that a lot of people seem to forget that this is a Polish studio that is in Europe, and their labor laws are totally different. And they do pay their workers overtime. And it's sad enough that you're attacking one company over crunch, which has no significant amount of argument when you should have been attacking Naughty Dog as well. Why is one company being hated for crunch when another company has done it and you're praising them and giving them rewards and all this other stuff? I don't get why you're doing that. And it doesn't seem like you're making a really good argument to make when clearly a lot of game journalists are very biased towards this game. And I seem to see a pattern of this happen a lot, especially in the game industry. Number two, he goes into this saying, riddled with glitches and bugs on high-end PCs the next gen and the next gen consoles are downright unplayable on older consoles, especially the base model PlayStation 4 and Xbox One release at the start of the generations in 2013. Now I'm going to go ahead and go into this and say this. I do agree with you, but at the same time I disagree with you because yes, it's not ridden with a lot of bugs. It actually has minor bugs on the PC version. The issue that people are having with this game is on console, mostly on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Most people wanted to play it on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox X series, which a lot of people wanted those consoles, but they got hit hard by scalpers buying out all the systems and selling them on eBay for exuberant amount of prices. And that is the biggest issue you should have addressed, but you didn't. So here we go with the next one that he's about to say now. So here we go. Number 4, he goes into it saying, all marketing material came from high-performance machines, which is normal in the business, but CDPR tried to exert additional control over what footage is made it out to the public before release by exclusive distribution PC code to reviewers and mandating an NDA to prevent reviewers from sharing their own video footage of the game until after the release. I got gum in my mouth, so I'm going to go ahead and address this because, yes, it is true that they did this to a lot of reviewers. We heard from a YouTuber named SkillUp who basically talked about this, and yes, it is true, and I do agree what they did was wrong there. That is the number 4 thing I'll agree with, and that's something that should be addressed, and that should have been pointed out. And that would honestly be a way of telling the truth, because the fact that they wanted to control reviewers on what they can review on the game and what they can't review on the game, what they can't show in the game was sad enough. And this review embargo kind of hindered that in a very unethical, shady way that you could have just addressed it in a way. That would have been the best way to address it. And yes, I do agree with number 4. Its lengthy hype cycle and years of carefully managed press touting its groundbreaking and innovative nature, Cyberpunk 2077 sold 8 million copies before release, meaning it was already a smash hit before it ever released, which I do agree that it was overhyped, and marketing did help this game to be what it is because of the fact that you could say that they had successful marketing ways to entertain people in trying to hype them into this game, because it was very much marketed towards that demographic of people that were into cyberpunk genre. Keep this in mind, it was a genre that people like. A lot of people like the books. A lot of people like the movies. I watched a lot of those movies when I was a kid, and I remembered watching cyberpunk stories like this. And this is nothing new, especially the books. Like, people would get into those things, especially the games as well. I guess number 6, this one is stupid, and I'm going to go ahead and go into this and say something about it, but I'm going to read it out loud. It was clear years ago that it would have a lowbrow sense of humor that routinely punched down with rampant misogyny and transphobia, and that kind of vulgar and juvenile jokes that only seem mature to those weird middle school kids that like to carve out naked women onto their desk. Now, I think this person really likes to use these buzzwords all the time, and the problem is I don't think he knows how to address this game very well. As much as I hate to say it, the game has violence. Yes, it has violence, but it's an RPG game about a dark dystopian world where you live with technology, advanced technology, cybernetics, you name it, corporations, and the environment being destroyed, and you live in apocalyptic where the city is outside an apocalyptic wasteland, and the only thing you have is the city itself. The problem with this person is that he believes in this stuff. I don't believe in it because of the fact that I know the difference between reality and fantasy. This person obviously doesn't. And and obviously this person never grew up very well and is obviously disturbed. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one. So here we go. I guess I better go ahead and go into number 7. Despite spending years in development and despite accessibility becoming a major focus for other publishers and hardware manufacturers, the developers were so careless that they included a gameplay feature that recreates a technique used by doctors to trigger seizures in those who suffer from photosensitivity, which, yes, then cause seizures in photosensitive players of the game. This is kind of over-exaggerated a little bit too much. They actually did try to correct it by putting a warning label in 1.3 version of their game, which CD Projekt Red did address this issue in a mature fashion by trying to put a warning label thanks to people who complained about it. But the sad part is that some people can't seem to forgive them. Now I'm going to go ahead and go into number 8 of this. Number 8, and I guess I'll try another take on this, because when one game journalist who personally suffered a seizure wrote about the irresponsibilities of including something like that in a video game, a few days before the game was released, she was viciously attacked by fans of the game who has never even played it yet, in a flashback to the kind of hostility and sexism seen during the highlights of Gamergate. Citation needed, please. I really need a citation. I need someone that can prove to me that this actually did happen, because I would like to know. I'm not trying to be denying your agency here, but I like to know, because I haven't heard any information about this, and I haven't heard anything about this other than the fact it's a claim. And the problem is you're pretty vague on who was attacked, and you don't bother to talk about it other than the fact that you claim it is. So please give us a citation, give us proof of this so that people can confirm and believe you. But I have to be skeptical of this because of the fact that people need to understand that this is the honest truth. I can't really take your word on face value based on the fact that you wrote an article saying that, oh, this actually did happen. I actually had this happen to me during the Vietnam back in the days when Gamergate happened. Right, number 9. That unbridled gamer hatred was that then turned on CD PR itself after the extent of the game's broken nature became evident after the release. Duh, Mr. Obvious. I don't know why people would bring it up every time. Like, it's obvious. This is an obvious reason, but not really the reason. But it's like, it's a waste of time. Everyone was upset, yes, because of the bugs and glitches. You already pointed that out. It was obvious and evident that people were upset with it. A lot of people were upset because of the fact there was bugs and crashes in the game, and that was mostly on the console side. There were minor issues on the PC side, and a lot of people were enjoying the PC version. Even I am, too. Now, number 10, a few days after the release, as the scope of the disaster was becoming clear, CD Projekt Red announced that players unhappy with the game could request a refund, but apparently did not confirm that its retail partners could honor those refunds requests before making that announcement. Which is true, because they didn't know any better, and they thought that some businesses operate on a principle of refunding games if they can, just like Steam does with their 2-hour thing. But unfortunately, Sony and Microsoft operate on a different scale of things. Like most companies, they thought they operate the same way as Steam, because considering that Microsoft is an American company and Sony is a Japanese company that also operates in America with their offices in California, they assume that they operate the same way. Keep this in mind. You should know this better than me because you're a journalist, right? Right? I guess not. I guess I better go ahead and do number 11. Sony and Microsoft eventually announced that they would process refunds for anybody who bought the game through their digital store, with Sony so ongoing to the extreme step of completely removing Cyberpunk 2077 from the PlayStation Store. Now, you may recall what happened in Australia when Sony had to deal with a lawsuit with the Australian government, and they were fined $2.4 million. And of course, in Australian dollars, it's $3.4 million, as I recall. They basically lost 2.4 million over this lawsuit that happened, and they were fined that much money for it. Keep this in mind that it is true that this did happen, but the reason why they removed it, they don't want to get sued again by the Australian government, because this game does have issues. This does have issues on the PlayStation version of the game. But as for the PC version, I didn't have a problem with it. As for the Xbox version, there may be bugs and issues with it, maybe crashes, I don't know. But other than the fact, I still had fun with the game, and I'm pretty sure everyone else is upset about it, but me, not so much. Next one. Go ahead and skip 12 through 13, because this guy is obviously trying to convince people of his anger about CD Projekt Red. Yes, what the business side of things they did wrong. They should have, and they admitted they were wrong. But here's the thing. They are trying their best to fix the problems with the game. Can you forgive them for that? Yeah, I could forgive them for trying to fix the game, because they actually are trying to fix those problems. Even when they released it, I can understand the issues with people not happy with the console version of the game. I can understand that. But here's the thing. Business-wise, yes, they lied to the business people over this, but they released the game, and it turns out it's okay. It's not the best game in the world. It doesn't have the best graphics. I do like the soundtrack. I do like the story. It's a weird game, but at the same time, fun. And I understand that he wants to be an advocate for the games industry, trying to help the game developers who are going through a tough time today, which I can understand too. And but I don't want to condemn the developers for anything, because I understand they put a lot of hard work into the game. Even though it's not an innovative game, they actually made a fun game, and I'm actually enjoying it. So anyway, CD Projekt Red, I honestly will forgive you guys, and I hope you guys have a good holiday season. So anyways, guys, take care. Have a Merry Christmas. So bye-bye.